stay on. Absolutely. It was hard to get him to sit for that picture. Okay. All right, everybody. Let's get this party started. So I'm Chuck Mullet, and I am the interim chair of pediatrics, and I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you all for coming here as well, and special thanks to those of you who traveled from afar. Furthest I've heard so far is North Carolina, which is wonderful. As we begin, I'd like to acknowledge a few of our special guests that are here to celebrate this advancement of high-quality pediatric cardiology care in our great state with Larry and his appointment to the James Walker Chair. Several of his family members have joined us today, including his wife, Terry, and his mother, Peggy, and his son, Josh, and daughter, Amanda, and they're all here in the front row. Yeah. Brothers Tim and Rick are in his second row, and Rick's two sons, Ethan and Evan, are also here. We are here today to not only honor Larry, but to appreciate the legacy of Dr. Walker's life work and the work he made possible through his gift. I want to take a brief moment to recognize his son, Dr. Rome Walker, who is here today. Dr. Phil Saul, the Executive Vice President of WVU Children's, and Dr. Bill Neal, the past Walker Chair recipient, are also here as well. Let's thank them. And not here yet, but represented by the empty chair is Provost McConnell, who's on her way. Advancement in medical care throughout our state, especially in rural areas, require the compassion and vision on the part of leadership. I'm happy now to introduce a man who has committed both as the Vice President and Executive Dean of WVU Health Sciences Center, Dr. Clay Marsh, and here's Dr. McConnell has just arrived, so thank you, Provost McConnell. Glad to have you here. And now, without further ado, let's have Dr. Marsh.
Well, it's my pleasure to welcome you guys to a really special celebration. And since we have multiple speakers, I have to stay in my lane and not get into their comments. But I have to make a couple of comments on behalf of our President, Gordon Gee. He congratulates you, Larry, both for this investiture, this chair that is being bequeathed upon you, for the service you've granted the people of the state, but for your vision and your caring for this state. And Larry's somebody who operates from his heart. And I would say he chose the right discipline because he's got the biggest heart of anybody I know. So, and we are at a very thriving, large university. We are Research One University, which means we're in a very select group with many people that are, or with a few places out of many that are doing research and graduate teaching and education. We have had a number of different recognitions of how we have done for our students and our faculty. But importantly, we are here because of our purpose. And our purpose is to both help this state become healthy and help the children of this state have better lives than they would otherwise, and be the new land-grant university to its state and land-grant academic medical center to the state of West Virginia. We're also here to change things and change things for the better. And as I look personally upon the things that inspire me, it's always the people. It's not the rankings or the metrics or the awards, it's always the people. And I would say that truly one of the best people I know is Larry Rhodes. Larry is somebody, when I first came, he called me and said, hey, I got a pickup truck. If you need me to help you move anything, I'm happy to. I'm like, who is this guy again? And I won't get into it, but Larry, as you'll see, is unbelievably well-trained and could be any place in the world he would want to be. He could have a very high administrative function in the best academic universities in this country, but he has chosen instead to come back home and serve the people that are the most vulnerable, the people that need the help the most. And not only has Larry had this in his heart for his whole life, Larry is truly one of the most authentic people I know. And he is somebody who lives and breathes to make the world better for children. And in that way, having that vision and that inspiration, I feel like that we can't help but making a difference. So it is really a privilege to work with Larry every day and to know him. I'm inspired by him and by his great heart and his great purpose. And I'm so excited that Skip and the Walker family have committed this chair to Larry. And as part of the celebration, I have the great and distinct privilege of also getting to introduce another really outstanding physician who's been a mentor to Larry, a former chair of pediatrics, as Larry was, but also a person that's changed the world for children. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Bill Neal, please.
Well, thank you, Dr. Marsh, and it certainly is a pleasure being here today, and especially to extend my greetings and honor to Dr. Rhodes, uh, who is one of my very favorite people of all time, and I can think of no one who deserves this honor uh, more so than Larry. Um, Again, sticking to my script, it's appropriate if we're honoring Larry as a recipient of the Walker Chair for us to have a sense of who Dr. Jim Walker was. And it was my great privilege to work with Dr. Walker for a number of years um, in his capacity as a cardiothoracic surgeon in Charleston, West Virginia, but more directly in my role working in pediatric cardiology. It, he was head of the handicapped children's program, as it was known back in those days. Uh, Dr. Walker, his family is a distinguished medical family in southern West Virginia, in the Charleston area, throughout indeed all of West Virginia. His son Skip, of course, is here with us today. But Dr. Walker's father was also named Rome Walker as his son. Um, Dr. The senior Dr. Walker was instrumental in founding Macmillan Hospital in the Charleston area, which was a predecessor hospital along with several others that became the Charleston Area Medical Center. And Dr. Walker had another real distinguishing characteristic, several distinguishing characteristics, one of which is the first board-trained thoracic surgeon in West Virginia. Um, One of the very first, in fact, one of two individuals who did the first open heart surgery procedures in this state. The first being right here in Morgantown as part of WVU. But secondly, in the Charleston area in the southern West Virginia, Dr. Walker doing open heart procedures there. So he was also very instrumental in the care of tuberculosis patients and was in charge of the tuberculosis clinics around the state. Back in those days, there was, in fact, prior to good medications to treat tuberculosis, surgical procedures that were done sometimes with success in people who were quite ill from tuberculosis. So Dr. Walker was in charge of that program. A premier program for children who are born with specialty problems, congenital problems, initially particularly orthopedic problems. It was a program that was started by the federal government called the Crippled Children's Program. And that Crippled Children's Program was, again, for children with orthopedic deformities, a program that began in the late 1940s. And Dr. Walker was involved in the early days of that program because it quickly expanded to other major problems of a congenital nature, including heart disease. And so in his capacity as a cardiothoracic surgeon, Dr. Walker became the sole provider for a number of years in outreach clinics, which were established around the state to serve these children. That program changed its name after some period of time to Handicapped Children's Program. After that, the Children with Special Needs, and I'm not sure what its official name is today, but it's a Maternal Child Health Title V program, which in West Virginia was distinguished because of Dr. Walker and others as one of the very best in the United States in terms of the system of outreach clinics, which he and others in orthopedics began to establish, such as Tom Scott in the Huntington area for orthopedics, Dr. Walker again for the heart program. Other handicapped children's programs in other states, for the most part, the children would come to where the tertiary medical center was, and in times, as you can imagine, in Dakotas and areas of great expanse and so forth, was inconvenient to say the least. But Dr. Walker's philosophy was to provide that care as close to home as possible. So we really, in a state, shined in that regard, and it was because of his unselfish dedication. I think that he enjoyed doing those clinics really perhaps as much, if not more so, than doing actual cardiac surgery. And though he retired from clinical practice of cardiac surgery in the latter years of his life, he continued until the day he died uh, doing children's outreach clinics. And in fact, died from an automobile accident on his way to a clinic. The other distinguishing thing that I want to mention that was so important to the system of care for children with heart disease in this state was Dr. Walker's devotion to seeing that we had a single statewide program which served all children. And he that program existed here in Morgantown. Um, there's only enough children born with congenital heart disease who need surgery to really support one good, thriving institution. And Dr. Walker saw to that, in distinction to many other places where there's competition for cases, and which maybe several, particularly in a smaller state like ours, the inability to have enough cases to have one strong, viable program, and consequently, children are sent out of state for their care. So, because of the success of the cardiac surgery program and the cardiac program that he fostered so ably in partnership with us, that's allowed us to recruit other great specialists in pediatrics. It really has been instrumental in the development of a viable children's hospital entity, which has existed here now for several decades. So. I hope that does give you a sense of who Dr. Walker is. It's my pleasure now to introduce the CEO of Children's Hospital, Dr. Phil Sauls. This is also a major step forward in that for the first time we have a physician CEO for Children's Hospital. And I think Dr. Sauls was brought here by our higher administration and so forth to develop a freestanding children's hospital, as he'll perhaps expand upon. Dr. Saul was actually trained by Dr. Rhodes at Boston Children's Hospital, tongue in cheek, but the two that were there together, and Dr. Sauls was distinguished as one who performed the first radio frequency ablation ever in a particular for a particular entity, abnormal heart arrhythmia, while he was in Boston, where he was there for a number of years. He then took over the leadership of cardiology at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston, South Carolina, where he stayed for quite a few years. Did a term as chairman of pediatrics at Ohio State University prior to coming to WVU. Phil has been a great asset in helping us develop our children's hospital and recruiting many subspecialists to build it out. So we're grateful that you've joined us, Phil, and let me ask you to come to the podium.
Well, thanks, Bill, for those kind words. It sounds like I should get the chair. No, just kidding. We've got a great honoree today, and it's truly a pleasure to have the honor to join Drs. Mullet, Marsh, Neal, and Walker in saying a few words about my longtime good friend and now colleague, Dr. Larry A. Rhodes. He's best known to everyone as Larry, and the other speakers will shine a historical light on him in a way which is somewhat different than mine. You've heard about the things that Larry's done in West Virginia. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Larry before West Virginia. Educated in West Virginia, he was a contemporary of Clay's and medical school, Judy Charlton, Norm Ferrari, to name but a few of the luminaries who have arisen from that area at the WVU School of Medicine, when future giants walk the halls like they do now. Alternatively, I met Larry when he was a virtual outsider who came to Boston's Children's Hospital in his perpetual short sleeves, he has on a suit today, with his Southern West Virginia accent and his inimitable style that seemed to have universal appeal, even to those that Larry might not be so complimentary of in private. I started my pediatric cardiology fellowship in Boston on July 1st, 1984, the day after our own Dr. Gus Gustafson, who's Gus here, finished his pediatric cardiac surgery fellowship with Aldo Castaneda and came back to WVU to advance cardiac surgical care for the children of our state. And I finished my fellowship on June 30th, 1987, the day before Larry started his fellowship. So I've been surrounded by West Virginians for a lot of years now. So you see, I trained Larry, actually. For his last year of fellowship in 1989, Larry was my partner, Ed Walsh's, and I, my first EP fellow. Despite being different, he still is. As you all know, Larry does, he fit in well in Boston. Somewhat belying his laid-back country facade, he was smart, hardworking, and had excellent judgment. Not sure what happened since then. Just kidding, of course. These are all critical features of an academic clinician and ones that have allowed Larry to succeed not only in Boston, but at CHOP and of course here at WVU. I'm clearly preaching to the converted when I say these words to this crowd. Now, there are probably some things all of you know about Larry. There are a few things some of you know, and maybe one or two that only Larry and I know, with the possible exception of Terry. We'll start with the more public items. I'm guessing anyone who knows Larry also knows he likes bourbon. A clear understatement. Something akin to love would be more accurate. In that light, I would not be revealing any secrets telling you how his family spent an entire vacation touring bourbon distilleries in Tennessee and Kentucky. They all love bourbon. I've told you some of how after Larry returned to WVU in 1991, I've told some of you that he used to stay at my house in Boston for a couple of weeks each summer while my family was on vacation and cover at Children's for me and my partner Ed, gaining more EP experience. A lot of good stories there, from getting his big truck stuck in the hospital garage and having to let air out of the tires to dislodge it, to backing his big truck into my neighbor's Cadillac and being treated a bit rudely because his plates were from West Virginia. Are you getting the idea his big truck really didn't fit in Boston too well? To locking himself out of my house and having to have the lock drilled, and the locksmith didn't even ask who he was. To telling us how our ornery cat Ricky, who never cuddled with anyone and sat in his lap and watched TV with him at night, much to my wife and my amazement. Just another example of everyone likes Larry, even Ricky, the ornery cat. But I'm sure none of you, except maybe Terry, have seen or heard his farewell speech when he left Boston, because I just found a copy of it 2 weeks ago while I was going through my files before moving. So here are some excerpts. This is Larry's words now. 4 years and 31 days ago, our forefathers set out to broaden this department by taking a poor dumb boy from West Virginia in the spirit that all men are created equal. Little did they know or could they understand the mission that lied ahead. There were many barriers to be addressed, not the least of which was language. Remember, these are his words, not mine. But with perseverance and perspiration, they have taught this hillbilly that a 5-pig is not a sow with 5 little ones. It's actually a type of heart catheter. Now we're involved in a great civil war with brother again brother, J. Ernie Locke versus FDA, over such trite issues as struts in your umbrella, which was an early device to close heart holes. Never has mankind seen or so endured such a calamity with so many holes and no means to plug them. But we as a department will endure as we did during the great stent and coil migration of 1990. We are gathered here today for a fallen soldier to say goodbye and dedicate this hallowed ground to the next wandering hillbilly that makes a left instead of a right at the Mason-Dixon line. May her time be spent as rewarding as mine. Men will scarce remember and soon forget the words spoken here today, but it is with a tremendous sense of pride and a deep feeling of friendship that I leave. I thank you. And then he read this poem. Oh, those West Virginia hills, how majestic and so grand, with their summits bathed in glory like Prince Emmanuel's land. Is it any wonder then that my heart with rapture fills as I think of friends and loved ones in those West Virginia hills? That's pretty much pure Larry, isn't it? But okay, enough stories about him. The real question is, why is Larry Rhodes getting this Walker chair, which states that it is, quote, a chair in pediatric cardiology for distinguished research benefiting the West Virginia University School of Medicine? I mean, yes, Larry is the director of the West Virginia Institute of Community and Rural Health. He was chair of pediatrics, as you heard. He's now the Associate Dean of Medicine for the WVU Beckley campus. None of us know exactly what that means, but He did have a number of grants to support rural health. He did start a camp for congenital heart disease patients that's still going. And last year, he started Camp Tomorrow is Mine for children from challenged families in southern West Virginia. All great things. But what research did or does he do? Well, it turns out that he's actually done quite a bit. Larry's second of 60 published manuscripts, Predictors of Survival in Neonates with Critical Aortic Stenosis, was quite important, and to this day, the metric derived in that paper is still utilized and known as the Rhodes score. I am a co-author on 8 of his papers and a number of abstracts, and I can tell you 2 things about him. First, but not foremost, he writes pretty much like he talks. It needs a lot of editing. So I read you some earlier. Second, but more important, beneath that bourbon and bourbon folksy exterior, he is a quite sophisticated analyzer and interpreter of data, leading to important insights from his work. Larry brings that same analytical approach to everything he does, assessing the needs of our community and then building an outreach network, developing rural health programs, and starting specialized camps for those who need them. Yes, lurking under that teddy bear exterior, there is actually a physician who is always doing research, no matter what the activity. From what I have heard of Dr. Walker, I believe it is just the kind of research he had in mind. I know I speak for the entire selection committee in stating that there is no one more deserving of the Walker Chair than Larry A. Rhodes. My heartiest congratulations, Larry. And with that, I will yield the podium to Dr. Walker's son, Dr. Walker.
That's a tough act to follow. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here, and it's my distinct honor to be able to represent my father. I want to thank Dr. Marsh and his staff for all the hospitality today. I haven't been back to this campus, I'll take it back once when my son graduated, but it's been 44 years since I graduated from medical school. So yesterday I drove around the campus. You've changed a little bit. Today I had a chance to tour this facility, and my gosh, what a place. You've got one of the best health science centers in the country. As I've traveled in my occupation, I've had a chance to visit many medical schools. And this is something that all of you should be proud of as West Virginians. You've gained national and international respect. I mean, this is just a fine facility. So hats off to all of you, job well done. I suspect not many of you, if any of you, ever knew my father. He was a very quiet individual. As Bill mentioned, he practiced cardiac and thoracic surgery all his life. His passion was medicine, but his real passion was probably getting out in outreach clinics. He loved that interaction with patients. He loved talking with them. When I was a third-year medical student and I was just starting, he said, "Son, I want to tell you something." And whenever he said son, I knew it was a problem. He said, "You will do well in medicine if you listen to me." He said, "First, when you see patients, learn how to talk with them, learn how to ask the right questions." He said, "Second, learn how to listen to them. And third, learn how to examine them. If you learn all 3 of those things, the patients will tell you what's wrong with them." It took me about 5 years in my practice to be able to realize how wise he was in that. So I thought, well, here comes my son. He's a third-year medical student. I said, "Son, let me tell you." So I gave him those 3 recommendations. And he said, "Why do I need to do that? I can just ultrasound the patient." Anyway, medicine keeps changing, and I had the opportunity to go through your STEP simulation lab today. Now I know where he got the bit about the ultrasound. But what a fine facility. I wish I had that when I was coming through medical school and my surgical training. Before my dad died, he told me that he wanted to set up a trust to fund numerous organizations, some in West Virginia, some outside. But the thing he was most proud about was the ability to fund a chair in pediatric cardiology. And I'm certain if he was here today, he would just be excited as could be about the next recipient. Dr. Neal was the first recipient, and Bill and my father had been friends for years, and Bill certainly had all the same visions as my father. But the next recipient is somebody who's reaching out to patients all across the state of West Virginia. He's very engaged in outreach clinics, and that certainly fits the vision my father had for this chair. So Larry, congratulations. On behalf of our charitable trust, we wish you the best of luck, and I'm sure you will do very well in the position. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. I want to turn our attention today to the reason that we have our celebration. An endowed chair is the highest academic honor that the university can bestow upon a faculty member. It lasts as long as the university exists. And we're now in our 151st year, Dr. Rhodes. So you can sit in it for a good while. Endowed chairs convene the brightest minds to focus on particular problems, spur advances in those areas, and honor the highest quality faculty that have made a significant impact. We certainly have the brightest and highest quality mind in Dr. Larry Rhodes. He graduated from WVU in 1984 and then from pediatric residency training here in 1987. He completed that fellowship in pediatric cardiology at Children's Hospital in Boston in 1990. He came home back to West Virginia after that and served here from 1990 to 1995, and then returned back home in 2005 after spending 10 years with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. He has spent his career providing care in medically underserved areas, much like Dr. Walker, and I know that he will continue the same commitment to education, research, and patient care that Dr. Walker lived, moving our department forward as one of the best cardiac programs in the country, absolutely grounded in the needs of our populace and our great state. It is my honor to introduce the new Walker Chair of Pediatric Cardiology here at WVU School of Medicine. Dr. Rhodes, please come join us for the chair presentation. And for those of you wondering, the chair is going to have rockers on the bottom. It won't be so short when it's in his office.
Well, I think the secret's now out. They chose me because the chair would not fit a normal sized person. So I'm grateful for the fact that they make short chairs. I am so honored and humbled standing here and looking at the people. There are people here that definitely deserve this much more than I do. There's friends, there's colleagues, there's my family, and I truly just appreciate every one of you that came. There's certain things that are special honors today, and one is sharing the podium with Dr. Neal. Dr. Neal, as he's mentioned, we've known each other a long time. He was my teacher, he's my mentor, he's my friend, and I owe my professional career to Dr. Neal and Dr. Gustafson. Dr. Gustafson's not here today, he's in Florida, but he sent his well wishes. and I'm truly thankful for that. I also want to mention that I had the honor of actually getting to meet Dr. Walker and to attend meetings with Dr. Walker. And as Dr. Walker Jr. mentioned, Dr. Walker was a quiet man, a man of few words. But when he spoke, it was kind of like that old commercial, when E.F. Hutton speaks, the world listens. I was in a meeting in Charleston about a year and a half before Dr. Walker died. We were at a meeting for the children with special health care needs, and I had spent about 15 minutes trying to explain to this group of people why a child may outgrow his wheelchair in 3 years. And the rule was you could not get a new wheelchair until that one was 3 years old. And I went through all this stuff talking about growth and different things. And Dr. Walker was just sitting back and listening. I rambled kind of like I am now for maybe 12 or 15 minutes. Dr. Walker said, "Get the child a wheelchair." It was done. It was done. The child got a new wheelchair. So, and then one other time I met with Dr. Walker that I think is something that was very important to me. In March or April of 2006, we, Dr. Neal, Dr. Walker and I were going to meet at Stonewall. And it was just like this year. We had a very late snowstorm. Dr. Neal was in Morgantown, Dr. Walker was in Charleston, and I was in Parkersburg. And Bill and I had talked, and Bill had asked Mary, his secretary at the time, if we maybe should reschedule this because the snow was just flying. And Dr. Walker said, no, we'll be okay. And Dr. Walker, as we've already heard, he was a road warrior. And he would do his clinics. He didn't cancel clinics. He went where he was supposed to be. So we went there, and it snowed, and it snowed. It was the first time I was ever in the Stonewall Resort. So I was sitting at that big lobby down there with that huge fireplace. And there was a fire in the fireplace because it was needed. And we talked probably for 45 minutes to an hour. And then we all got in our cars and we all made it home. I didn't have a car, I had a truck, but I made it home. But I have to tell you, I've never had an audience with the Pope or the President, and I never will. But after having that meeting with those two men that night, I don't care. It was an epiphany for me. And I'm so very proud that I can stand here and say that. So I talked through my notes. I can't. So just another thing that I'm very, very thankful for. Other than my family, the two greatest blessings that I've had in my life was, number one, being born in West Virginia, and number two is my association with the WVU School of Medicine. And I am so very proud of both, and I have such optimism for both. And I think that the work that Dr. Walker did and Dr. Neal, I think that we do have a foundation where we will do that. Better things are coming for our state, and I'm so happy to be part of that. The other thing that I need to do, I have to give credit to two women that are sitting on the front row here. The first one is my mother. She's on that side. She and my father took care of 3 juvenile delinquents. And all 3 of us ended up going to college, and we all worked for a living. It was at a time when most of the people that we graduated with didn't necessarily even think about going to college. But it was them that helped me get to where I am today. Now, she did the easy part. The other woman is on this side, and that's my wife, and that's Terry. And she's actually from Philippi, where Dr. Walker did a clinic in Philippi. And he may have been one of only 20 people in the state that knew where Philippi was, but that's where she came from. If things don't happen in a bad way, come August this year, we'll be married 38 years. We got married 2 weeks before I started medical school. I'm telling you, she was from Phillips. She wasn't all that smart. And she went ahead and did that. So I got her on the hook, and that's what happened. But it got worse. We come to medical school, and this woman, we lived on generic macaroni and cheese. It was $1 a box. My wife worked in the animal quarters here. She cleaned cages, went down 1 floor below us while I went to medical school, and she went to college. She graduated Phi Beta Kappa from this college while she was working nights and weekends cleaning animal cages. You'd think I'd owed her something, wouldn't you? Well, let me tell you how I paid her back. When we went to Boston, I took my wife, 2 kids in diapers, moved them into a 2-family, 2-bedroom apartment. Now, I'm happy to say both of the kids are now out of diapers, and I give my wife all the credit for that. I think they're out. Josh, I'm not quite sure about, but I think they did get out. But I want to just say, she knows what it's like to be a med student. She knows what it's like to be a resident. She knows what it's like to be a fellow. And she knows what it sounds like for a beeper to go off 4 or 5 times a night. And she's done it almost 4 decades, and I thank her. In closing, I just want to thank you all for coming. I'm very honored. The fact that it was once Bill's and now it's mine. And if I had my way, if I was God, it'd be Bill's today. But he had to give it back. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rhodes. Before I unleash you all upon the wonderful food and drink that we have here and the music that's to come, I'd like to express my gratitude to Provost McConnell and Dr. Walker and the Walker Family Trust, Drs. Marsh, Saul, and Neal, and to you all for joining us today for this Dr. Larry A. Rhodes Roast and Walker Chair celebration. This concludes the Investiture program, and I invite you all to remain in the reception here in the pylons for the food and drink. Thank you all very much.